The sound of 15 consecutive bullets hitting their targets with deadly precision echoed across the shooting range like thunder. Each shot was perfect. Each shot was calculated. Each shot was fired by a woman who had been told just months earlier that she wasn't good enough to serve alongside America's most elite warriors. The Navy SEALs had rejected her application without even giving her a chance to prove herself. They cited regulations, policy, and tradition. What they didn't count on was her refusal to accept defeat. What they didn't expect was that their rejection would forge her into something more dangerous than they ever imagined. A marksman so skilled that her story would challenge everything the military thought they knew about women in combat. This isn't just a story about perfect shots or military politics. This is the story of a woman who turned rejection into rocket fuel, who transformed no into watch me, and who proved that sometimes the people you underestimate become the ones who redefine what's possible. Her name would become whispered legend in shooting circles. Her skills would earn respect from the same men who once doubted her, and her 15 perfect shots would become the moment that changed not just her life, but the conversation about women in elite military units forever. The range fell silent after that 15th shot, but her story was just beginning to roar. Sarah Mitchell had always been different from other girls her age. While her classmates spent weekends at the mall or gossiping about boys, she was at the local shooting range with her grandfather, learning to steady her breathing and squeeze the trigger with surgical precision. Her grandfather, a Vietnam veteran, had recognized something special in his granddaughter from the moment she picked up her first rifle at age 12. Her hands didn't shake. Her eyes never wavered. Most importantly, she never flinched. Growing up in a small town in Montana, Sarah's childhood was painted with the vast landscapes of Big Sky country and the strong values of hard work and determination that her family had instilled in her for generations. Her father worked as a ranch foreman, her mother taught at the local elementary school, and every member of her family understood the meaning of service. Military portraits lined the hallway of their modest home, showing uncles, cousins, and great-grandfathers who had served their country with honor across multiple wars and conflicts. But Sarah's dreams reached beyond the family tradition of regular military service. She had read every book, watched every documentary, and studied every piece of available information about the Navy SEALs. These weren't just elite soldiers. They were the pinnacle of military excellence, the warriors who handled the missions that others couldn't even imagine. From the moment she understood what the SEALs represented, Sarah knew with absolute certainty that this was her calling. This was where she belonged. During her senior year of high school, while her classmates worried about prom dates and graduation parties, Sarah was developing a training regimen that would have impressed even seasoned military personnel. She woke up at 4:30 every morning to run through the harsh Montana wilderness, pushing herself through conditions that would break most people. Snow, rain, blazing heat, bitter cold. Nothing stopped her daily routine. She studied military tactics, learned multiple languages, and maintained a physical fitness level that surpassed most men twice her size. Her academic performance was flawless, graduating as valedictorian with a perfect GPA while simultaneously earning her emergency medical technician certification and completing advanced wilderness survival courses. Sarah understood that becoming a SEAL required more than just physical strength. It demanded intellectual excellence, emotional resilience, and an unbreakable mental fortitude that could withstand the most extreme situations imaginable. The local community watched Sarah's preparation with a mixture of admiration and concern. Her dedication was undeniable, but many questioned whether the military would ever accept a woman into such an exclusive and traditionally male-dominated unit. Her high school guidance counselor gently suggested that perhaps she should consider other military careers that might be more realistic for someone of her gender. Sarah listened politely to these well-meaning suggestions, then continued her training with even greater intensity. Her grandfather became her strongest supporter and harshest critic. He understood both the nobility of her dream and the brutal reality of military politics. During their long sessions at the shooting range, he would share stories of his own military service while helping Sarah refine her marksmanship to levels that bordered on supernatural. Her accuracy became the stuff of local legend. She could hit targets at distances that made experienced hunters shake their heads in disbelief. When Sarah turned 18, she immediately contacted a Navy recruiter to begin the process of enlisting and eventually applying for SEAL training. The recruiter, a veteran Navy petty officer named Chief Martinez, was initially skeptical when this young woman walked into his office speaking confidently about becoming a SEAL. However, his skepticism quickly transformed into amazement as Sarah demonstrated knowledge about military procedures, physical fitness standards, and tactical operations that exceeded most of the men he had recruited over his 15-year career. Chief Martinez worked closely with Sarah to ensure her application was perfect. Every document was meticulously prepared, every requirement exceeded, and every possible objection anticipated and addressed. Sarah's physical fitness scores shattered existing records. Her psychological evaluations indicated exceptional mental stability, and her background investigation revealed a young woman of impeccable character and unwavering determination. The months of waiting for an official response felt like an eternity. Sarah continued her training regimen while working part-time at her grandfather's ranch and volunteering with the local emergency medical services. She maintained her peak physical condition and continued studying everything related to military operations, never allowing herself to consider the possibility of rejection. In her mind, failure wasn't an option, because becoming a SEAL wasn't just her dream, it was her destiny. When the official letter finally arrived on a cold February morning, Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she opened the envelope. Her parents stood nearby, holding their breath as their daughter read the contents of the document that would determine her future. The rejection was swift, clinical, and devastating. The Navy cited current policies that prohibited women from serving in direct combat roles, specifically mentioning that SEAL teams remained exclusively male units due to the unique physical and operational demands of their missions. The letter thanked Sarah for her interest in serving her country and suggested that she consider other military occupational specialties where women could make valuable contributions. It was a form rejection, impersonal and cold, that dismissed years of preparation and a lifetime of dreams with bureaucratic efficiency. Sarah read the letter 3 times before the reality of the rejection fully settled in her mind. Her parents watched their daughter's face transform from hopeful anticipation to crushing disappointment. Then something else entirely. A quiet, burning determination that they had seen before, but never quite at this intensity. Sarah carefully folded the rejection letter, placed it in her bedroom drawer, and announced that this wasn't the end of her story, but merely the first chapter. The next morning, Sarah was back at the shooting range before sunrise, working on her marksmanship with a focus that bordered on obsession. Her grandfather found her there, firing round after round with mechanical precision, each shot driven by a combination of disappointment and determination that he recognized from his own military experience. He didn't offer sympathy or false encouragement. Instead, he quietly loaded ammunition and provided the kind of silent support that spoke louder than any words could have. Over the following weeks, Sarah researched every possible avenue for appealing the decision or finding alternative paths into special operations. She contacted military lawyers, spoke with veterans advocacy groups, and reached out to anyone who might provide guidance on challenging military policies. What she discovered was a system that was slowly beginning to change but still operated under decades of tradition and regulations that seemed immovable. However, Sarah also discovered something else during her research: upcoming military competitions and marksmanship contests that were open to civilian participants. These events provided opportunities for skilled shooters to demonstrate their abilities in front of military personnel, defense contractors, and other influential figures within the military community. Sarah realized that while she couldn't force her way into SEAL training through official channels, she could make herself impossible to ignore through undeniable demonstrations of her capabilities. The rejections had closed one door, but Sarah's response was to start kicking down others. She began entering every shooting competition, military-related event, and tactical challenge she could find. Her goal wasn't just to win. It was to win so decisively and consistently that her name would become synonymous with precision marksmanship and tactical excellence. Her first competition was a regional precision shooting match held at a military base 3 hours from her hometown. Sarah arrived as an unknown 18-year-old woman in a field dominated by experienced male military personnel and law enforcement officers. The other competitors viewed her with a mixture of curiosity and condescension, making comments about her youth and gender that she absorbed without reaction while methodically preparing her equipment. The competition consisted of multiple stages testing different aspects of marksmanship: long-range precision, rapid-fire accuracy, shooting under stress, and moving target engagements. Sarah approached each stage with the same calm intensity that her grandfather had taught her, focusing entirely on the fundamentals of breathing, sight alignment, and trigger control while blocking out everything else around her. When the final scores were announced, Sarah had not only won the overall competition, but had done so by margins that left experienced competitors speechless. Her precision scores were unprecedented, her rapid-fire accuracy was flawless, and her performance under pressure had demonstrated the kind of mental fortitude that military trainers spent years trying to develop in their students. The victory was just the beginning. Word spread quickly through military and law enforcement communities about the young woman from Montana who could outshoot anyone who stepped up to challenge her. Invitations to more prestigious competitions began arriving, along with requests from military contractors and training facilities who wanted to see her skills firsthand. Sarah's reputation began spreading through military circles like wildfire after her first competition victory, but she knew that one win would be dismissed as beginner's luck or a fluke performance. She needed to build a pattern of excellence so consistent and overwhelming that it would be impossible to ignore or explain away. Her strategy was simple but demanding. She would compete in every major shooting competition across the country, systematically defeating the best marksmen that law enforcement and military communities could produce. The financial burden of traveling to competitions was significant for a young woman from a working-class family, but Sarah's parents understood the importance of supporting their daughter's mission. They took out a second mortgage on their ranch, her father picked up extra work, and her mother tutored students in the evenings to help fund Sarah's competition travel expenses. The family treated these sacrifices not as burdens but as investments in something larger than themselves, a chance to prove that excellence transcends traditional boundaries and expectations. Sarah's second major competition was the Western States Tactical Challenge, held at a sprawling military training facility in Nevada. This event attracted participants from across the country, including active-duty military personnel, federal law enforcement agents, and civilian contractors who worked directly with special operations units. The competition was designed to simulate real-world tactical scenarios, testing not just marksmanship but decision-making under pressure, equipment management, and the ability to adapt quickly to changing situations. Unlike her first competition, Sarah was no longer an unknown quantity. Word of her Montana victory had reached many of the participants, and she could feel the weight of expectations and skepticism as she prepared for the opening ceremony. Some competitors approached her with genuine curiosity and respect, wanting to learn about her training methods and background. Others maintained a distance that suggested they viewed her presence as either a publicity stunt or an anomaly that would be quickly exposed when faced with truly challenging conditions. The Western States Tactical Challenge consisted of 12 different stages spread across 3 days of competition. Each stage was designed to test specific skills while building cumulative stress and fatigue that would separate elite performers from merely skilled shooters. Sarah approached the event with meticulous preparation, studying the course descriptions, practicing with equipment configurations that matched the competition requirements, and developing stage-specific strategies that would maximize her natural advantages while minimizing potential weaknesses. The first stage involved long-range precision shooting at targets positioned between 600 and 1,000 meters in challenging desert wind conditions. Competitors had to account for bullet drop, wind drift, temperature variations, and mirage effects while engaging multiple targets within strict time limits. Sarah's years of practice in Montana's variable weather conditions had prepared her perfectly for these challenges. She completed the stage with perfect scores on all targets, finishing with time to spare while most other competitors struggled to achieve even marginal accuracy at the longest distances. As the competition progressed through subsequent stages, Sarah's performance became increasingly dominant. Her rapid-fire accuracy was flawless. Her movement between shooting positions was fluid and efficient, and her ability to maintain precision while under time pressure seemed almost supernatural to observers. More importantly, she demonstrated the kind of tactical thinking that impressed even experienced special operations personnel who were watching the competition. During the 7th stage, a complex scenario involving multiple moving targets and simulated hostage situations, Sarah made a series of split-second decisions that showcased not just her marksmanship skills, but her understanding of tactical priorities and risk assessment. She engaged threats in an order that maximized safety for simulated hostages while maintaining her own security, all while delivering shots that eliminated targets with clinical precision. By the final day of competition, Sarah had established such a commanding lead that her victory was mathematically assured before the last stage began. However, she approached the final challenge with the same intensity and focus that had characterized her entire competition, understanding that every performance contributed to her growing reputation and credibility within military communities. The final stage was designed as the ultimate test, a complex scenario that combined long-range precision, rapid target transitions, movement under fire, and equipment malfunctions that required immediate adaptation. Sarah navigated the course with the kind of calm competence that made experienced observers shake their heads in amazement. When equipment malfunctions forced her to transition between weapon systems, she did so seamlessly while maintaining her accuracy standards. When moving targets appeared at unexpected angles, she adapted her shooting positions instantly, while never compromising her safety protocols. When the final scores were announced, Sarah had not only won the overall competition, but had done so with the highest point total in the event's 15-year history. Her victory margin was so large that second place was closer to 10th place than to her performance level. The closing ceremony was awkward for many participants who had arrived expecting to compete against their peers, only to witness a demonstration of marksmanship that redefined their understanding of what was possible. More importantly, for Sarah's long-term objectives, her performance had been witnessed by several active-duty special operations personnel who attended the competition as observers and unofficial talent scouts. Among these observers was Master Chief Petty Officer James Richardson, a 22-year Navy SEAL veteran who served as an instructor at the Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Master Chief Richardson had attended the competition to evaluate new equipment and training techniques, but found himself instead studying the young woman whose shooting abilities exceeded those of many SEALs under his command. After the competition concluded, Master Chief Richardson approached Sarah with a mixture of professional curiosity and genuine amazement. He introduced himself and asked direct questions about her training methods, her military aspirations, and her long-term goals. Sarah answered honestly, explaining her SEAL application rejection and her determination to prove that gender should not disqualify capable individuals from serving in elite units. Master Chief Richardson listened carefully, recognizing in Sarah the kind of natural tactical instincts and unshakable mental fortitude that could not be taught in any training program. He also understood the political and institutional challenges she faced, having witnessed talented individuals struggle against military bureaucracy throughout his career. However, he also recognized an opportunity to demonstrate something important about merit-based selection versus traditional assumptions about gender roles in combat operations. Their conversation lasted nearly 2 hours, covering topics ranging from tactical philosophy to the psychological demands of special operations work. Master Chief Richardson was impressed not just by Sarah's knowledge and dedication, but by her realistic understanding of the challenges she faced and her strategic approach to overcoming institutional barriers. He had encountered many individuals who possessed either exceptional skills or strong determination, but rarely someone who combined both qualities with the kind of tactical intelligence that Sarah demonstrated. Before leaving the competition, Master Chief Richardson provided Sarah with contact information for several upcoming events that would offer additional opportunities to demonstrate her capabilities in front of influential military personnel. He also mentioned that policy changes were being discussed at the highest levels of military leadership regarding women in combat roles, suggesting that her timing might be better than she realized. Sarah's third major competition was the National Precision Rifle Championship, held at a facility in Virginia that regularly hosted military and law enforcement training programs. This event attracted the most skilled marksmen from across North America, including several current and former military snipers whose reputations were legendary within shooting communities. Sarah understood that this competition would provide her most challenging test yet, facing opponents whose skills had been proven in actual combat situations. The competition format was different from previous events Sarah had entered, focusing exclusively on long-range precision shooting, with minimal time pressure but maximum accuracy requirements. Targets were positioned at distances ranging from 800 to 1,500 meters, with scoring systems that penalized even slight deviations from perfect center hits. The weather conditions were deliberately challenging, with variable winds and lighting that changed throughout each day of competition. Sarah's preparation for this event was more intensive than anything she had undertaken previously. She spent weeks practicing at similar distances in Montana, working with her grandfather to simulate the wind conditions and target configurations she expected to encounter. She also studied ballistics data for the specific ammunition and rifle systems that would be used in the competition, calculating precise holdover and windage corrections for every possible distance and weather combination. The competition attracted significant attention from military and civilian shooting communities, with several defense contractors using the event to demonstrate new equipment and technologies. Sarah found herself competing not just against individual marksmen, but against teams of shooters supported by advanced equipment and extensive technical resources. Despite these disadvantages, she approached each stage with the confidence that came from knowing her skills were built on fundamental marksmanship principles that transcended equipment advantages. During the opening ceremony, Sarah was introduced to several notable competitors, including Gunnery Sergeant Michael Torres, a Marine sniper with confirmed kills in both Iraq and Afghanistan, and Sergeant First Class David Kim, an Army Special Forces operator whose precision shooting abilities were considered legendary within special operations communities. Both men treated Sarah with professional respect, understanding that her presence in this elite competition field meant she had earned the right to be there through demonstrated performance. The first day of competition involved shooting at targets positioned between 800 and 1,200 meters in relatively calm conditions that favored pure accuracy over wind reading skills. Sarah's performance was flawless, achieving perfect scores on all targets while demonstrating the kind of consistency that amazed even experienced competitors. Her shooting positions were textbook perfect, her breathing control was visible even to distant observers, and her trigger technique showed the kind of refinement that usually took decades to develop. As the competition progressed and weather conditions became more challenging, Sarah's advantages became even more apparent. While other competitors struggled to read the constantly changing wind conditions, Sarah seemed to anticipate each shift and adjust her point of aim accordingly. Her scores remained perfect, even as target distances increased and environmental factors became more complex. By the final day of competition, Sarah had once again established a commanding lead that made her victory inevitable. However, the final stage presented challenges that would test even her exceptional abilities. The longest shots were at 1,500 meters in gusty wind conditions, requiring precision that pushed the absolute limits of equipment capabilities and human skill. Sarah's final 10 shots were witnessed by a crowd that included military personnel, equipment manufacturers, and shooting enthusiasts who understood they were watching something historic. Each shot was perfect, hitting the center of targets at distances where most skilled marksmen would be satisfied with simply hitting the target anywhere. Her final score broke multiple competition records and established new standards for precision shooting performance. Sarah's string of victories at major competitions had created something unprecedented in military shooting circles. A civilian whose abilities exceeded those of the most elite military marksmen, and whose presence at competitions was now drawing attention from the highest levels of military leadership. What she didn't know was that her performances were being documented, analyzed, and discussed in Pentagon briefing rooms, where policy decisions about women in combat roles were being debated with increasing urgency. The call came on a Tuesday morning in late September, nearly 18 months after Sarah's initial SEAL application rejection. Sarah was at the family ranch helping her father repair fence lines when her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. The voice on the other end identified himself as Colonel Patricia Hayes from the Pentagon Special Operations Policy Review Board, and she was calling to invite Sarah to participate in a classified evaluation program that was assessing the feasibility of integrating women into special operations units. Colonel Hayes explained that Sarah's competition performances had been brought to the attention of senior military leadership through multiple channels, including reports from active duty special operations personnel who had observed her capabilities firsthand. The evaluation program was designed to objectively assess whether qualified women could meet the physical, mental, and tactical standards required for elite military units, using scientific methodology rather than assumptions or traditional policies. The invitation was both an opportunity and a challenge that would test every aspect of Sarah's preparation over the past year and a half. The evaluation would take place at a classified facility in North Carolina over a 2-week period, during which she would be subjected to the same tests and challenges used to assess male candidates for special operations programs. The testing would be conducted by active duty special operations personnel, and the results would be used to inform policy decisions at the highest levels of military command. Sarah's acceptance was immediate and unconditional, but the preparation requirements were extensive and demanding. She would need to maintain absolute secrecy about the program's existence, undergo additional security clearance processing, and prepare for evaluations that would test not just her marksmanship abilities, but every aspect of military readiness, including physical fitness, psychological resilience, tactical knowledge, and leadership capabilities. The weeks leading up to the evaluation were filled with intensive preparation that pushed Sarah beyond even her previous training standards. She increased her physical conditioning to levels that would satisfy the most demanding military fitness requirements, studied advanced tactical procedures and military protocols, and worked with local law enforcement personnel to practice small unit tactics and close-quarters combat scenarios. Her grandfather, now in his 70s but still sharp and experienced, became her primary training partner for tactical scenarios. Using his Vietnam combat experience and knowledge of military procedures, he created realistic training exercises that tested Sarah's decision-making under pressure, her ability to work as part of a team, and her capacity to lead others in high-stress situations. These training sessions often lasted from dawn to dusk, with scenarios that pushed Sarah's physical and mental limits while preparing her for the unknown challenges she would face during the official evaluation. When Sarah arrived at the classified facility in North Carolina, she discovered that she was not the only participant in the evaluation program. 4 other women had been selected based on various criteria, including military service records, athletic achievements, and demonstrated capabilities in related fields. The group included a former Army helicopter pilot, a Marine Corps martial arts instructor, a Navy explosive ordnance disposal technician, and a Coast Guard rescue swimmer. Each woman brought different strengths and experiences, but all shared the common goal of proving that gender should not be a barrier to serving in elite military units. The facility itself was a sprawling complex of training areas, classrooms, barracks, and specialized equipment that replicated the environments where special operations forces typically trained and operated. The evaluators were active duty personnel from various special operations units, including Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, Marine Force Reconnaissance, and Air Force pararescue teams. These men had volunteered for the assignment, understanding that their objective assessments would influence decisions that could reshape military culture and operational effectiveness. The evaluation began with comprehensive medical and psychological assessments designed to establish baseline measurements for all participants. Sarah's physical condition was found to exceed military fitness standards by significant margins, while her psychological evaluations indicated the kind of mental stability and stress tolerance that were considered ideal for special operations work. However, she understood that the real test would come during the tactical and operational phases of the evaluation. The first tactical assessment involved marksmanship evaluations that went far beyond anything Sarah had encountered in civilian competitions. She was required to demonstrate proficiency with multiple weapon systems under various conditions, including night shooting with night vision equipment, shooting while wearing full combat gear, and engaging targets while moving through complex terrain. The scenarios were designed to replicate combat conditions where split-second decisions and perfect accuracy could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Sarah's performance during these assessments exceeded the expectations of even the most optimistic evaluators. Her accuracy remained perfect regardless of equipment, environmental conditions, or time pressures. More importantly, she demonstrated the kind of tactical instincts and situational awareness that could not be taught in any classroom or training program. She intuitively understood target priorities, recognized potential threats before they materialized, and made strategic decisions that impressed experienced special operations personnel. The second phase of evaluation focused on small unit tactics and team leadership scenarios. Sarah was placed in teams with other participants and active duty personnel, then given missions that required coordination, communication, and collaborative problem-solving under extreme pressure. These exercises tested not just individual capabilities, but the ability to function effectively as part of a unit where lives depended on seamless cooperation and mutual trust. During one particularly challenging scenario involving a simulated hostage rescue, Sarah was placed in a leadership position and tasked with coordinating a team assault on a defended position. The exercise required precise timing, careful coordination between multiple team elements, and the ability to adapt quickly when initial plans proved inadequate. Sarah's performance demonstrated not just tactical competence but the kind of natural leadership ability that inspired confidence and cooperation from team members who had initially been skeptical about working with civilian participants. The evaluators noted that Sarah's leadership style was distinctly different from typical military approaches, but was equally effective in achieving mission objectives. She communicated clearly and directly, made decisions based on careful analysis of available information, and adapted her tactics based on feedback from team members rather than rigidly following predetermined plans. These qualities, combined with her obvious technical competence, created a leadership dynamic that maximized team effectiveness while maintaining operational security and mission focus. The third phase of evaluation involved advanced tactical scenarios that tested individual and team performance under the most extreme conditions possible without actual combat involvement. Sarah and the other participants were subjected to sleep deprivation, nutritional stress, extreme weather conditions, and psychological pressure, designed to simulate the kinds of challenges that special operations personnel faced during extended missions in hostile environments. During these scenarios, Sarah's mental fortitude became her most valuable asset. While physical stress and sleep deprivation affected her reflexes and reaction times like any other human being, her ability to maintain tactical awareness and make sound decisions remained remarkably consistent. Evaluators noted that she seemed to possess an internal governor that prevented stress from compromising her judgment or causing her to make dangerous mistakes under pressure. One scenario that particularly impressed the evaluation team involved a 48-hour mission simulation that combined navigation through hostile territory, multiple target engagements, equipment malfunctions, and simulated casualties that required medical treatment and tactical evacuation. Sarah not only completed all mission objectives within specified time limits, but did so while maintaining the safety and effectiveness of her team throughout the exercise. The psychological evaluations conducted throughout the 2-week program revealed personality traits and mental characteristics that aligned closely with profiles of successful special operations personnel. Sarah demonstrated high levels of emotional stability, stress tolerance, and adaptive thinking that indicated she could handle the psychological demands of elite military service. Perhaps most importantly, she showed no signs of the ego conflicts or authority issues that sometimes cause problems with highly skilled individuals in military environments. As the evaluation program entered its final phase, Sarah had consistently outperformed not just the other civilian participants, but many of the active duty military personnel who served as control subjects for various tests and scenarios. Her marksmanship scores were unprecedented, her tactical performance was exemplary, and her leadership abilities had earned respect from evaluators who had initially been skeptical about the entire program. The final evaluation involved a comprehensive assessment scenario that tested all aspects of special operations capabilities in a single, complex mission. Sarah was given command of a mixed team of evaluation participants and active duty personnel, then tasked with planning and executing a multi-phase operation that included reconnaissance, direct action, and extraction components. The mission required her to demonstrate strategic thinking, tactical expertise, leadership skills, and the ability to adapt to changing conditions while maintaining operational security and team safety. Sarah's approach to the final evaluation demonstrated the full scope of her capabilities and preparation. She conducted detailed mission planning that accounted for multiple contingencies, briefed her team with the kind of thoroughness that ensured everyone understood their roles and responsibilities, and executed the mission with a combination of precision and flexibility that impressed even the most experienced evaluators. When equipment failures and unexpected complications arose during the mission, Sarah adapted her tactics without compromising mission objectives or team safety. Her marksmanship remained flawless under the most challenging conditions. Her leadership kept the team focused and coordinated, and her decision-making under pressure demonstrated the kind of judgment that was essential for special operations success. As the 2-week evaluation period concluded, Sarah knew that she had performed to the absolute limits of her capabilities, but she also understood that the final decisions would be based on factors beyond her individual performance. The program's success would depend not just on proving that women could meet special operations standards, but on convincing military leadership that integrating women into elite units would enhance rather than compromise operational effectiveness. The waiting period after Sarah's evaluation was more challenging than any physical test she had endured during the 2-week program. She returned to Montana knowing that her performance had been exceptional, but also understanding that decisions about changing decades-old military policies involved political and institutional considerations that extended far beyond individual merit or capability. The evaluation team had been impressed by her abilities, but translating that assessment into actual policy changes would require navigating complex bureaucratic processes at the highest levels of military and civilian leadership. During the months following her evaluation, Sarah maintained her training regimen while trying to live a normal life, despite the uncertainty about her future. She couldn't discuss the classified evaluation with anyone, including her family, which meant processing the experience and its implications entirely on her own. The secrecy requirements were particularly difficult because her parents and grandfather understood that something significant was happening, but couldn't be told any details about the program or Sarah's involvement in it. Sarah used this waiting period to expand her skill set beyond marksmanship, recognizing that any future opportunities would require broader tactical capabilities. She enrolled in advanced medical training programs, studied foreign languages that would be valuable in special operations contexts, and worked with local law enforcement agencies to gain experience in urban tactical environments. Her goal was to ensure that when opportunities arose, she would be prepared for any challenge that might be presented. The call from Colonel Hayes came on a cold December morning, nearly 4 months after the evaluation had concluded. Sarah's heart raced as she answered the phone, knowing that this conversation would determine whether her years of preparation and dedication had been sufficient to overcome institutional barriers that had seemed insurmountable. Colonel Hayes's voice was professional, but carried undertones that suggested significant developments had occurred since Sarah's evaluation. The news was both encouraging and frustrating in equal measure. Sarah's evaluation results had been outstanding, with performance scores that placed her in the top percentile of all special operations candidates regardless of gender. The evaluation team had unanimously recommended that she be given the opportunity to attempt actual special operations training, with the understanding that her success or failure would provide valuable data about the feasibility of integrating women into elite military units. However, Colonel Hayes explained that policy changes moved slowly through military bureaucracy, and various stakeholder groups within the Pentagon were still debating the implications of opening special operations programs to women. While Sarah's individual qualifications were not in question, broader concerns about unit cohesion, physical standards, and operational effectiveness needed to be addressed through additional analysis and evaluation. The compromise solution was both an opportunity and a challenge that would test Sarah's abilities under the most demanding conditions possible. She would be invited to participate in an advanced training program that closely replicated actual special operations selection and training processes. The program would be conducted by active duty special operations personnel using the same standards and procedures applied to male candidates, with the understanding that successful completion would strengthen arguments for policy changes, while failure would be used to justify maintaining existing restrictions. Sarah's acceptance was immediate, but the program requirements were more demanding than anything she had previously encountered. The training would take place over a 6-month period at multiple locations, including underwater operations training in Florida, mountain warfare training in Colorado, and desert operations training in California. She would be evaluated not just on her individual performance, but on her impact on team dynamics and operational effectiveness. When integrated with male special operations candidates, the physical and mental preparation required for this advanced training pushed Sarah beyond even her previous standards of excellence. She increased her cardiovascular conditioning to levels that would satisfy the most demanding military fitness requirements, practiced underwater swimming and diving procedures that were essential for maritime operations, and studied advanced tactical procedures that went far beyond basic military knowledge. Her grandfather's role in her preparation became even more critical as the training date approached. Using his extensive military experience and knowledge of special operations procedures, he helped Sarah develop the mental toughness and tactical instincts that would be essential for survival in a program designed to eliminate candidates who couldn't meet the highest standards of military excellence. Their training sessions became increasingly intense and realistic, with scenarios that tested Sarah's limits while preparing her for challenges that could not be fully anticipated. When Sarah arrived at the first training location in Florida, she discovered that she would be training alongside 12 male candidates who represented some of the most qualified personnel from various military branches. These men had been selected from hundreds of applicants based on their exceptional service records, physical capabilities, and psychological evaluations. They understood that their training class was being used to evaluate the feasibility of gender integration, which created additional pressure and scrutiny that affected everyone's performance. The initial reception from her male classmates was mixed, ranging from professional respect to skeptical curiosity to outright hostility. Some candidates welcomed her presence as an opportunity to work with someone whose abilities they had heard described in almost legendary terms. Others viewed her participation as a political experiment that compromised the integrity of training that they had spent years preparing to attempt. Sarah understood that earning acceptance would require not just meeting standards, but exceeding them consistently while demonstrating that her presence enhanced rather than diminished team effectiveness. The underwater operations phase of training was designed to eliminate candidates who couldn't handle the physical and psychological demands of maritime special operations. Sarah and her classmates were subjected to increasingly challenging scenarios involving combat swimming, underwater navigation, small boat operations, and beach reconnaissance procedures. The training was conducted by Navy SEAL instructors whose reputation for demanding excellence was legendary throughout the military community. Sarah's performance during underwater training exceeded even the optimistic expectations of her instructors. Her swimming abilities were exceptional, her comfort level in underwater environments was remarkable, and her capacity to remain calm and focused during emergency procedures impressed even experienced SEALs who served as instructors. More importantly, she demonstrated the kind of tactical thinking and team coordination skills that were essential for successful maritime operations. During one particularly challenging exercise involving a night beach reconnaissance mission, Sarah's leadership and technical skills proved crucial to her team's success. When equipment failures and unexpected enemy activity complicated their mission, Sarah adapted her team's tactics while maintaining operational security and achieving their reconnaissance objectives. Her performance during this exercise convinced even skeptical classmates that her presence was an asset rather than a liability. The mountain warfare training phase took place in Colorado's challenging high-altitude environment, where candidates were tested on their ability to operate effectively in extreme weather conditions while carrying heavy equipment across difficult terrain. The training scenarios involved long-range reconnaissance missions, mountain climbing operations, and cold weather survival techniques that pushed physical and mental endurance to their absolute limits. Sarah's Montana background provided significant advantages during mountain training, as she was already accustomed to harsh weather conditions and high-altitude environments that challenged candidates from other regions. Her marksmanship abilities became even more valuable in mountain environments, where long-range precision shooting was essential for mission success. During multiple training exercises, her ability to engage targets at extreme distances under challenging conditions provided her team with tactical advantages that impressed instructors and classmates alike. The psychological pressures of mountain training were as challenging as the physical demands. Candidates were subjected to sleep deprivation, nutritional stress, and constant evaluation that was designed to identify individuals who possessed the mental fortitude required for special operations work. Sarah's performance during these evaluations demonstrated the kind of psychological resilience that could not be taught or developed through training alone. During a week-long survival exercise that tested candidates' ability to operate independently in hostile territory with minimal equipment and supplies, Sarah not only met all mission requirements but provided assistance to classmates who were struggling with various challenges. Her medical training proved valuable when injuries occurred, her navigation skills helped teams maintain their planned routes, and her leadership abilities kept morale high during the most difficult portions of the exercise. The Desert Operations training phase in California presented different but equally demanding challenges, involving extreme heat, limited water, and terrain that required specialized tactical approaches. Sarah and her classmates were trained in desert survival techniques, long-range patrol procedures, and direct action operations that could be conducted in arid environments. The training scenarios were designed to simulate conditions that special operations forces might encounter in various global conflict zones. Sarah's adaptation to desert conditions was remarkable, demonstrating the kind of environmental flexibility that was essential for special operations personnel who might be deployed to any climate or terrain on short notice. Her ability to maintain peak performance despite extreme heat and physical stress impressed instructors who had seen many qualified candidates struggle with desert training requirements. The culminating exercise for the entire training program was a complex multi-phase operation that tested all aspects of special operations capabilities in a single integrated scenario. Sarah and her classmates were tasked with planning and executing a mission that involved infiltration, reconnaissance, direct action, and extraction components conducted across multiple environments and weather conditions. Sarah's role in planning the final exercise demonstrated her strategic thinking abilities and tactical expertise. Her contributions to mission planning were valued by teammates who had initially been skeptical about working with a woman, and her leadership during execution phases proved crucial to the overall success of the operation. When unexpected complications arose during the mission, Sarah's adaptability and problem-solving skills helped the team maintain operational effectiveness while achieving all assigned objectives. As the 6-month training program neared its conclusion, Sarah had not only met every standard and requirement, but had consistently performed at levels that placed her among the top candidates in the class. Her marksmanship scores were unprecedented, her leadership abilities had earned respect from instructors and classmates, and her tactical performance had demonstrated capabilities that exceeded those of many active-duty special operations personnel. The final evaluation involved comprehensive assessments of each candidate's performance throughout the training program, including technical skills, leadership capabilities, team integration, and overall potential for success in special operations units. Sarah's evaluations were uniformly outstanding, with instructors noting that her presence had actually enhanced the training experience and performance of her male classmates, rather than creating the disruptions that some critics had predicted. However, Sarah understood that completing the training successfully was only the first step in a longer process of changing military policies and institutional cultures that had developed over decades. Her individual success would need to be translated into broader policy changes that would create opportunities for other qualified women to serve in elite military units. The moment Sarah had been building toward for over 2 years arrived on a crisp morning in March at the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, California. She stood before a gathering that included the most senior leadership of the United States Special Operations community, admirals, generals, Pentagon officials, and policymakers who would ultimately decide whether her exceptional performance was sufficient to change decades of military tradition. The demonstration they were about to witness would determine not just her own future, but the future of women in elite military units across all branches of service. The invitation to this final demonstration had come after Sarah's completion of the advanced training program, with scores that shattered existing records. Her 6-month performance had been so exceptional that senior military leadership requested a comprehensive demonstration of her capabilities before making final policy decisions. What they designed was not just a test of marksmanship, but a public statement about the standards required for special operations service and whether those standards could be met regardless of gender. The demonstration would take place before an audience that included skeptics who remained convinced that women could not meet the physical and mental demands of elite military service, as well as supporters who believed that merit should be the only criterion for special operations selection. Sarah understood that her performance would be scrutinized not just for technical excellence, but for any sign of weakness or limitation that could be used to justify maintaining existing policies.
The shooting range had been configured to present the most challenging conditions possible within safety limitations.
Targets were positioned at distances ranging from 300 to 1,000 meters, with wind flags indicating gusty and variable conditions that would challenge even the most skilled marksmen. The audience included active-duty SEALs, whose marksmanship abilities were considered legendary within military communities, and they would be watching every shot with the critical eye of professionals, who understood exactly how difficult the demonstration would be. Sarah's preparation for this moment had been meticulous and intensive. She had spent weeks practicing with the specific rifle and ammunition that would be used for the demonstration, calculating precise ballistic data for every possible distance and wind combination she might encounter. Her grandfather had traveled to California to provide moral support and last-minute coaching, understanding that this demonstration represented the culmination of everything they had worked toward together. As Sarah took her position at the firing line, the range fell silent except for the sound of wind flags snapping in the gusting breeze. She had requested that the demonstration consist of 15 shots at varying distances and conditions, with each shot representing a different aspect of the marksmanship skills required for special operations work. The targets had been selected to test not just accuracy, but the ability to make rapid adjustments between shots while maintaining perfect precision under pressure. Her first shot was at a target positioned at 300 meters in relatively calm wind conditions, a distance that most skilled marksmen would consider manageable, but that still required perfect technique and concentration. Sarah's breathing was controlled and steady as she aligned her sights, adjusted for the slight crosswind she felt on her face, and squeezed the trigger with the kind of smooth consistency that her grandfather had drilled into her over thousands of hours of practice. The shot was perfect, hitting the exact center of the target with an impact that was audible even to observers positioned behind the firing line. The audience of military personnel recognized immediately that they were witnessing something exceptional, as the precision of the shot under demonstration conditions exceeded what most of them could achieve under ideal circumstances. Sarah's second shot was at 500 meters with increased wind conditions that would challenge even experienced military snipers. She took slightly longer to assess the wind patterns, watching the grass movement and flag positions that indicated the complex air current she would need to account for. Her hold and trigger control remained perfect as she delivered a shot that once again hit the target's center with precision that drew audible reactions from observers who understood the difficulty of what they were witnessing. The third through seventh shots tested Sarah's ability to engage multiple targets at different distances while adapting to changing wind conditions. Each shot required her to make rapid calculations for bullet drop and windage corrections while maintaining the kind of consistent shooting position and trigger technique that ensured repeatable accuracy. Her performance remained flawless, with each bullet hitting its intended target with precision that demonstrated mastery of fundamental marksmanship principles. The eighth shot presented the most challenging wind conditions of the demonstration, with gusting crosswinds that were changing direction and intensity unpredictably. Sarah spent additional time reading the environmental conditions, using all of her senses to assess the air movement that would affect her bullet's trajectory. When she finally took the shot, her timing coincided perfectly with a brief lull in the wind conditions, and the bullet struck its target with the same precision that had characterized her previous shots. The ninth and 10th shots were at targets positioned at 700 and 800 meters respectively, distances where even small errors in technique or judgment would result in complete misses rather than merely imperfect hits. Sarah's performance at these ranges demonstrated not just exceptional marksmanship skills, but the kind of tactical understanding that allowed her to make precise adjustments based on environmental conditions that were constantly changing. As Sarah prepared for her 11th shot, the pressure of the moment was palpable among the observing audience. Military leaders who had arrived skeptical about the entire demonstration were beginning to understand that they were witnessing capabilities that exceeded those of most personnel in their own units. The shot was at 900 meters in conditions that challenged the limits of both equipment and human capability, requiring Sarah to account for multiple environmental factors while maintaining perfect shooting technique. The bullet's impact was perfect once again, hitting the center of a target that appeared almost impossibly small at such a distance. The silence from the audience was more telling than applause would have been, as experienced military personnel absorbed the implications of what they were witnessing for their own understanding of marksmanship excellence and human capability. Sarah's 12th shot was the most technically demanding of the demonstration, requiring her to engage a target at 1,000 meters while accounting for complex wind conditions that were affecting bullet trajectory in multiple ways. At this distance, the margin for error was essentially zero, and even slight imperfections in technique or environmental assessment would result in complete failure to hit the target. Her preparation for this shot was meticulous, involving careful observation of wind indicators at multiple points between her position and the target, precise calculation of the ballistic corrections required for the extreme distance, and mental preparation for a shot that would test the absolute limits of her capabilities. When she finally squeezed the trigger, the shot was perfect, striking the target's center with an impact that demonstrated marksmanship abilities that bordered on the supernatural. The 13th and 14th shots were designed to test Sarah's ability to maintain precision while transitioning between different shooting positions and target configurations. She moved from prone to supported kneeling position, then to an unsupported standing position, while engaging targets at varying distances. Her accuracy remained perfect, despite the increased difficulty of shooting from less stable positions, demonstrating the kind of versatility that was essential for special operations personnel who might need to engage targets under any conceivable circumstances. As Sarah prepared for her 15th and final shot, the weight of everything she had worked toward over the past 3 years seemed to focus into this single moment. The target was positioned at 800 meters, with wind conditions that were gusting unpredictably, presenting a challenge that would test every aspect of her marksmanship skills while serving as the culminating demonstration of her capabilities. Her approach to this final shot embodied everything she had learned from her grandfather about the mental aspects of precision marksmanship. She cleared her mind of external pressures and expectations, focusing entirely on the fundamentals of breathing, sight alignment, and trigger control that had become second nature through years of dedicated practice. Her body position was perfectly stable, her breathing pattern was controlled and consistent, and her mental state was calm and focused, despite the enormous significance of the moment. The 15th shot was absolutely perfect, hitting the exact center of the target with an impact that seemed to echo across the range like thunder. For a moment after the shot, complete silence dominated the demonstration area as the audience processed what they had just witnessed. 15 consecutive shots, each delivered under challenging conditions, each hitting its target with precision that exceeded the capabilities of most military personnel, regardless of their training or experience. The silence was broken by spontaneous applause from the audience of military leaders who understood that they had witnessed something historic. Sarah had not just demonstrated exceptional marksmanship abilities, she had proven beyond any reasonable doubt that gender was irrelevant when measuring the capabilities required for elite military service. Her performance had been so overwhelming and decisive that even the most skeptical observers could no longer argue that women lacked the skills necessary for special operations work. In the days following the demonstration, policy changes that had been debated for months moved rapidly through military bureaucracy with unprecedented speed. Sarah's performance had provided the objective evidence needed to convince even reluctant leadership that merit-based selection was more important than traditional gender restrictions. Within weeks, official announcements were made that special operations programs would be open to qualified women, with selection based entirely on demonstrated capabilities rather than gender-based assumptions. Sarah's 15 perfect shots had accomplished more than just hitting their targets. They had shattered barriers that had existed for decades and opened doors that would benefit countless women in future generations. Her journey from rejection to acceptance had demonstrated that excellence could overcome institutional prejudice when combined with unwavering determination and the courage to challenge existing limitations. The young woman who had been told she wasn't qualified to serve alongside America's most elite warriors had proven that she was more qualified than most of the men who served in those units. Her story became legend not just because of her exceptional marksmanship abilities, but because she had used those abilities to change the course of military history and expand opportunities for everyone who possessed the skills and dedication required for elite military service. Years later, when military historians examined the factors that led to the integration of women into special operations units, they would identify Sarah's 15 perfect shots as the moment when institutional change became inevitable. Her demonstration had provided undeniable proof that capability transcended gender, and that the military's effectiveness was enhanced rather than compromised when selection was based purely on merit and performance. Sarah's legacy extended far beyond her own military career, inspiring a new generation of women to pursue opportunities that had previously been considered impossible. Her story became a testament to the power of persistence, the importance of excellence, and the truth that barriers exist only until someone possesses the skill and determination to break through them. The 15 shots that had echoed across that California shooting range continued to resonate through military culture, changing not just policies but fundamental assumptions about what was possible when talent was allowed to flourish regardless of traditional limitations.